When you discovered the law of attraction, you started to believe anything was possible. Life got better, much better. Now you want more, but it's not working. That's where the Manifest It Now show comes in. If you've been waiting for someone who can teach you the practical application to manifest quicker and easier while having more, turn the volume up, because the dynamic duo, Cassie Parks and Ginny Gain, are ready to teach you how to live the law of attraction like they do. It's time to laugh and learn.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Manifest It Now. Cassie and I are back with a continuation from last week's episode talking about how to use LOA to transition your career. But first, Cass, what are you excited about this week?
I am so excited about heading to Pleasant Valley, Arizona, and the Pleasant Valley Castle, which you guys can actually check out at pleasantvalleycastle.com. And it's one of our listeners actually manages this property.
I know, it's so fun.
It's so fun. And so she said you all can have a 10% discount if you mention that you heard about it on Manifest It Now, which I think is awesome.
Woohoo!
Yeah, amazing girls trip. More that, I got 10 clients coming in and they're going to get their makeup done and we're doing their money manifested photo shoots. I'm doing my manifest over $1 million photo shoot. I know, I'm so excited about that. And then, we're doing future self cocktails with an amazing food is being delivered. And it's just going to be an amazing time of connecting and stepping into my clients' future selves.
How fun. I love it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. What are you excited about?
I'm also excited about traveling. I have a surprise trip planned for Lisa for her birthday. We're going to go to Nashville, see a concert, and go for a hike and come back. And all the pieces that have fallen into place for it to happen have been perfect. And now that I'm saying this, I'm hoping that this doesn't come out before we go.
Yeah.
No, it's
funny.
It's not.
Oh, and it's so fun.
It is so fun, and I'm super stoked for it. And now let's jump back into our topic. Okay, so you're making that vibrational shift. You're making that beingness shift where you're at. And so how would you say, Cass, or what would you say about this idea of finding that balance? So you know that you've dreamt, you're clear, there's this thing, there's this new experience that you want to get to. You can kind of almost feel it coming because you've been tapping into it, but you're still at work and you feel better, but you're still attentive to how it's not what you want. What would you say to that space?
Oh, I would say you have to turn up even more the volume on what you do want. Like, you want it to become so good that you don't notice you're not where you want to be yet.
I love it.
Like, that really is where the magic spot is.
Yeah.
Right? So
sometimes I think because it's easy to observe what we don't want if it's right in your face. You need, that's why this is what deliberate creation is. You spend more time in the area of of how you want to feel and being deliberate and responsible about that.
Yes.
I spend time here getting familiar. I spend more focused attention on where I want to go, not where I am.
I want to highlight that. It's deliberate. It's you have to be deliberate if you want to create.
Or you cannot be. Yeah. If you aren't, it just takes longer. That's that thing is it gets more annoying and it gets frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to change, the reason it's called deliberate creation instead of just creation is because you have to be deliberate. And you, what was I going to say? Oh, you mentioned time, right? If you need this, just to even think about this visual, or maybe you need to do this, pay attention, right? But you have to be over 50% in what you want, because that's where you create that, right? So if you're spending 60% of the day complaining, but you're 40%, I'm working really hard, I'm doing all of these things, I'm, which we haven't even mentioned. So we should probably wrap back around to some of these other things that, like visualization and things that people might be thinking they're doing to get this stuff, but they need to focus more on the beingness.
The beingness, yep.
Because it's that beingness over, 51% of the time is what's going to get you there. And so really look at it. If you think like, well, I'm doing all these things, awesome. Track your time. But how much of the day are you spending not liking your job? How much of the day are you spending complaining with a coworker instead of finding a coworker that you like and talking positive about what's going on in their life and really connecting, right? Start to be diligent and deliberate and analyze what you're actually doing if you find yourself in this place where you're like, well, I feel like it's not happening fast enough.
Yeah. I feel like that describes exactly what, so the next kind of point, I think it's number 4 that we're on, is this sense of like, okay, claiming you are ready. It's like, okay, like this now, it's like, okay, I feel more of it now. I see a little bit, but the pull of getting back, almost like pulled back into the old stuff, the negativity or whatever. There's an element, and we talk about this in the manifesting process, where you claim, you're like, okay, I'm ready for more. And I feel like that is a part of this process in terms of, you set different boundaries for yourself, and this is the strength of the deliberateness coming in. You're not willing to go back into the I have to stay here, or the thoughts that don't serve you. So it's like you put your foot down and you set a wall and say, I'm not willing to do that. I know I'm going here, and this is how I'm moving forward, and I'm focusing in this way. And it's not forceful. It's not trying, because it kind of could seem like trying. It's like, I'm solid. I know what I want, and this is where I'm going. And there's like just a strong yes to the universe with that energy. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. I have never claimed any, like, I'm like, can I find an
example?
Yeah.
I feel like it comes it shows up when we set boundaries. It might not be like, I'm claiming I want this.
Got you. So talk more about, like, define boundaries in this situation.
So when you say in your head, I'm not willing to complain about my boss. I'm not willing to complain about my job, because I know it doesn't serve me, and I know where I'm going.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And boundaries in terms of, I guess complaining is the biggest one that comes up, because that's one of the things that keeps us stuck in the old stuff.
So really be willing to own that it's coming, and so like you're not gonna do anything to slow it down. Yeah. By complaining. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the other way that the other thing that ties into this is, is like really taking that step of ownership. Is one example would be like, if you're still entertaining jobs that, well, I could be happy here. I could make this work, right? It's stopping looking at all those, just like in your client example. It was like, no, like it's not working, and so I'm going to stop. That was also, I feel like, no, like I got to fix this. But it's also just not even entertaining anything that doesn't meet your criteria.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back and talk about some of those tools?
Some of which tools?
You were saying visualization. People think they're doing this stuff of visualization and maybe making lists or whatever, when it's more important to step into the beingness.
Yeah. 100%, right? Because I'll get this a lot. People will come, well, like, I'm visualizing this. I'm meditating on where can I find my job. I'm,
where can I find my job? Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, how do I get a new job? I'm visualizing this. I'm doing that. I'm saying all these mantras. Like, all of that is a fraction of the energetic input that just stepping into the beingness is. And stepping into the beingness is everything else that we've talked about. Because you'll notice, like, we didn't bring up, like, one step wasn't to visualize you in a new career, right? Because that happens naturally. And it doesn't mean that, like, visualization is wrong or doesn't maybe have a place here. It's just not it's and on a weight, you know, if you look at like a scale, it's got a lot less weight than
Power,
focusing on the beingness, right? So if it's a tool to help you get into the beingness, that's one thing. But what was I going to say? Oh, like the visualization happens when you make the giant list. That's when that imagination and that stuff flows, and that's where it's like, oh yeah, I can see myself walking in, and it's a beautiful space. It doesn't look stuffy like an office. You know what I mean? And because those tools can be powerful, but when you're making a big shift like this, it's the beingness.
I remember when Lisa was first getting to know like you and I in our podcast.
Yeah.
She's like, that word beingness drove me crazy. She's like, now I find myself using it at work. Because she's like, I get what it means now. Like, I understand it.
Yeah. It's huge. And
it's your most powerful tool.
Yeah, I like literally just think of it as like at a 100, and anything else is like maybe a 10. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many more things I want to talk about this. So
yeah. What else do you I want to go ahead. I want to make sure we talk about time.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Is this a good place for that?
Yep.
So I think it's important. I love in the story that it took like a year, right? And in that time, she was able to grow into that much bigger salary, that much bigger freedom, right?
Yes.
It's not about like, it is divine timing in that she actually wanted probably more than that original job. Like whatever that original job was, it looked like a fit on the outside.
Yeah.
But she really wanted bigger. Like it was better than where she was, but it wasn't big enough. It wasn't awesome enough.
For what she was really asking for.
For what she was really asking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get hung. I think time is a big one. You know, I have clients a lot, but like, I want to know what I'm supposed to do. So sometimes it's an inkling, right? Like we're talking about like, oh, I know I want a new job and here's all these things, but it can be even a transition from being a stay-at-home mom to going back into the workforce.
Yeah.
Right? Or it can be
just knowing
something,
you want something different, some different experience. Yeah.
And you have to, there's a process to stepping into that beingness that often takes a while, and it's worth it. Like, and especially when you look at this example that you shared in the beginning, like that year, like so worth waiting a year.
Yeah.
And so worth having a year to become the person who could have that even better job.
Yeah.
Right? Like rushing it, it's the reason it takes time is because of the beingness, because you have to become that person that can be the container to hold all of that awesome that you want and navigate it and own it and feel good in it. Yeah.
So good. And that's why your work, guys, is never to make the outsides change. It's never to do stuff. It's always about who you're being. It's always about how you feel. So like your thoughts and how you feel create your state of being, right? And it's that is the most important. So if you're wanting to focus on, I know we talk a lot about this, and I think we've done actually a whole show on it, on beingness, but if your beingness or knowing who you need to grow into is going to come from that list that you do in step number 1 or 2, is that when you've thought of that ideal experience for your career, who is the person that's living that? What's she doing? How does she feel? That's where you get your guide for who you're being.
Yes. And I want to make a point as we're like highlighting this. What you want, like just because you want something doesn't mean you're being the person who has it.
Yes. And definitely.
I want to talk a little, because I think people get confused, but it's like, but I want this better job. I'm ready.
I deserve it.
I deserve it. Right.
Yeah.
If you, and here, that's usually one of my signs. Like if you say I deserve it, you probably haven't done the beingness yet.
Yes. It's a good key one.
Yeah. Should we talk about why?
Yes. Keep going.
So because when you are fully owning and when you are being that person who is ready to receive that amazing job, big salary, learning all the fun stuff that you want, you don't, you never justify it by saying I deserve it. Like it just never, it's so much in your being that I deserve it never even enters your mind.
You hit it, Cass, when you said justify. Because in that statement, you're trying to justify why. But when you're being it, there is no justification needed. You know it's coming. You know it's a part of you. You know it's happening. You know it's there. There's no explaining why you get it or you should have it or you want it. It's just there.
It's just there. And it just is you. And so if you do find, is there any other words like that that are signs you're not in the, deserving is the biggest one, I think. But
yeah, so I want this. I deserve this. I mean,
I've worked so hard. Yeah. I've worked so hard. Yeah. And maybe you have. It's what?
It goes with deservability.
It does. Yeah. And
that, yeah.
Yeah. Because you think, because I've worked so hard either at this job or you think you've worked so hard in your LOA practice that it's time. And so when you find that like your LOA practice, it should be deep work. Like we always say this, right? It is work, but it's not always easy, but it's not like hard grinding work. If you feel like you're hard and grinding to try and get to this space, like just step back and look at the work you're doing. And I'm guessing that you're not focused on the beingness. You're focused on either things that you think you're focused on doing. Yeah, you're focused on things that you think are going to get you there. You're probably got some how energy in there. Yeah.
I had this little thought come to me the other day. I forget what it was about. It was in more of a frustrated mood because someone had said something about being easy, something being easy or something being, oh, I know what it was. Somebody posted this thing on Facebook about, it was just a rude, someone pointed out that someone else had thrown this trash on the ground and they posted their license plate and said, hey, this guy's an asshole. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it like offended me because I'm like, you're doing so much more harm putting that negativity out into the world than you would be, than this guy's doing throwing trash on the ground. And why, there's a point to the story. And I was like, it's, you know, he's saying something about it being hard. And I'm like, you know what is actually hard is getting over yourself and making these decisions to grow, to like let go of that stuff, and like choosing frustration or complaining, or sometimes can be like, to me, there's a part of this work that's an easy path. If you're like, it feels better and easier to complain about this or to get mad at this person or to blame this person than it is to stop, take a breath and say, okay, this is something that's important to me. I want to do this work, and to be willing to let that go. There's a time in this growth work that's the hard stuff. And so I know it is coming a little bit from this like fiery place, but it was like the stuff we do, I think probably because there's some story in the back of my head that's like, oh, everything's so easy for you. And I'm like, yes, but I do the hard stuff too of like, you know, being deserving of good things because, you know, I haven't put the hard work in. But there's an element to this growth work that I want you to claim as like, I am doing the hard work. Yeah. Now, I don't want to put out there at all that like, yes, there's times we get angry and following the path of least resistance is important, but also include this perspective in your paradigm, in what's going on in your head.
Well, yeah, like you can get angry, but like either let it go or take some action, right? You could spend the same, so you took a picture, you posted it on social media, and then you probably watched all the comments. I mean, how many hours did you spend on somebody throwing away trash? Like you could have just walked to your park and picked up trash.
Yeah.
And like actually made the difference that you want to make.
And
right?
That's the beingness right there, is in those choices of like, I'm going to be the person that trusts the world is taking care of this. You know, I'm going to be the person who is eco-friendly. I'm going to be the person who's conscious. And, you know, I'm not, that's a good example of that.
I'm going to be the person who is the change I want to see, right? People say this all the time, but they don't. That's what honoring that means, right? Like, it doesn't mean calling someone else out. It means doing your own part, which is not spending an hour calling someone else out. It's, man, it really pisses me off that people throw their trash on the ground. I'm going to go take care of that.
Yes.
You know,
and I think both of those things are important to acknowledge. So it's not like saying we're not going to get mad at things.
Right.
The way Cass said it was perfect. I'm so pissed off about this. Now, what I'm going to do about it, like the action I'm going to take about it, is going to be this.
Because the ultimate, and this is I want to highlight this is creating what you want versus being in the how. The how is, I'm going to call this guy out and everybody's going to make him not throw trash.
Yes.
But the beingness and what kind of world you want is a world where there's not trash all over. Like, so the stepping in and creating that is actually picking up trash off the ground and making it less. Right? And being the leader of that, because somebody sees you doing that, they might think the next time that they're doing that, you know?
Exactly. And that's how we influence with our vibration. That's how we actually teach, by being the example.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit, touch on, at least I know we're almost out of time, but where in terms of timing, Cass, and this aspect of, say we're leaving a comfortable job to go out into something more unknown. Say we're going out and we're doing entrepreneurial things. Where's the same process happens as we're going from being that security and having to grow into the person who is that entrepreneur. Is there a timing thing with this? How would we know when it's right to leave?
How do you know when it's right to leave?
What would you say to that?
Ooh, I think this is a interesting one. I was going to say tricky. I think it's just interesting because I think it's both a feeling and it's both a decision.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's like the feeling I'm ready, and it's actually making that decision. I'm going to leave this point, you know, like I made the decision, like at least 6 months, my date was firm that I was leaving. Right. And so like picking that date was important. And I actually had a coach that like was like, you have to pick the time because this can go on forever. Right. Because you can be getting ready forever.
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
when I think of when I was leaving personal training, I thought about it for a year before I actually did it. And I just let circumstances guide that. I moved. So it was a perfect time.
Yes.
To stop that.
Which I love that because that can also happen. Like sometimes it happens naturally, right? It was like, I'm not going to go get another personal training job. Right. Like that's not happening. So I love that because I think, but you were ready. You had done all the work and you were sort of just, ready. It was just the circumstances lining up. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I want to talk, maybe we should save this for another show, a little more open, not just like job to job transition. Because, I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, well, let's save that. And let's finish with this releasing the old job part.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that.
An important part of what brings in the next one. Quickly, I'll tell a story of one of my clients, Amanda. I think I kind of mentioned a few weeks ago how she was transitioning out and finding a new job. And this was part of her becoming the person who was in the new job and having the new experience. One of the exercises, I'm like, okay, write the letter, let it go, appreciate it. And so and she resisted for like a week. And then like the night before our call, she wrote it and she's like, got on the phone with me. And she's like, the day after I wrote that letter, I got 3 interviews. And then I talked to her a week later and she had a new job offer.
That's amazing.
That powerful. It's like, but the becoming was all the months before that. And especially that's why there was so much resistance in that last week because she knew what was coming. right?
Right.
And then it's actually like taking that action for some reason helps to like just release it into the world.
Yeah. Well, it
Open up
solidifies
that
it in
space.
your brain, right? It's that decision point. I am, okay, this is complete and I am ready, right? Like that's saying I'm ready.
Yes. And you're
Yeah.
like taking an action of where you're letting that go, which I think is cool and powerful.
Yeah, it is. Another thing that ties into that sort of in the beingness part is cleaning out your office so that it's like easy to leave, right?
Yes.
Because that's what's also, it's the beingness of, yeah, I'm ready, I'm moving on. Like there's not a bunch of crap in my drawer that's all personal I need to go through for 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
There's, I can walk out of here, my boss always said, like in times when things got a little rough at our, at the end, she was like, yeah, I have one box. Just get your stuff. She's like, make sure at any point you can walk out with one box. Like, and it's true, right? Like, because I know because when I started, like, because it took me I've been there for 9 years. There was stuff that like I needed, but maybe the next person didn't need. That was my own process. But like, they were probably going to develop their own stuff. And there was personal stuff that I, whatever, shoved in my drawer because I'd done it on my lunch hour. And so I had to go through all that stuff. And so when you're ready to leave, you don't have any of that to do. And that's a huge signal to the universe that like, no, I'm done here. I have one box to carry out with my coffee mug and my bobblehead or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, fits exactly with everything Cass and I talk about, like creating physical space opens up energetic space. It's such a good example. I can remember, I mean, I have so many client examples of that exact thing of like, hey, I cleaned up all this stuff and, oh my gosh, all these new ideas are coming in about what I want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. So anything else, Cass, or how do you want to go over everything over the past 2 weeks?
I mean, I think we really covered it, right? Like listen to that nudge or that whisper if we're talking about jobs and, listen when you want something more. I think is the biggest thing I would say to people is like, when you hear that, I want more of this, like start listening then. You can have it. Like believe you can have it then. You don't have to wait till it's annoying you to get out. Go big. Take responsibility for becoming the person who can live in that big space, who is living that job. And then claim you're ready by showing the universe, write the letter, claim it, clean your office, do all the things that show like, yep, I'm here, I'm ready.
I think it can be powerful too to acknowledge that you've changed. So if you've been doing the work and you've done it and you feel different and you're asking yourself that question, I'm still here though, like what the heck? Instead of focusing on that, look at yourself, keep the attention focused on yourself and be like, oh, I'm different. Like, I am being different. Like I am responding to this different. And even just acknowledging that, since we've told you it's important for you to shift your vibration first, that's going to give you that like, oh, it is happening. I'm doing it because I know I can see and I can feel that I'm different. Therefore, I know the experience that's coming is going to be different. It's going to be a match that's going to be more fulfilling in everything that I'm feeling now. And I think the other thing I want you guys to stay aware of, a big part of this process is just being deliberate about staying tuned in to that experience you want.
Yes.
Stay like this underlying faith of the vision of where you're going. And the more time you spend there, the easier and the more enjoyable the path there will be.
Absolutely. And let go of the time. Like the time doesn't mean anything. Time is not a factor in whether it's working or not working. It's working if you're working it. Like trust that whatever the time is just you getting big enough for the opportunity. And
I mean, I love that. I'm like, just like take time off the table. Just like
yes,
it's not a factor.
Take it off. It's not a factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, have an amazing week and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Go be awesome!
Thank you for joining us on the Manifest It Now show, where you learn how to leverage the law of attraction to manifest your dreams. Now that you're inspired, share the love and review us on iTunes. While you're there, remember to subscribe.